dive deeper into the January 6th committee's work with defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Shan Wu. Shan, always great to see you. Appreciate you being with us this morning. Let's start with the Supreme Court's decision earlier this week allowing the committee access to hundreds of documents that the former president tried to block. He tried to use executive privilege to block them. The court did allow for other possible uses of that defense, even while striking Trump down. What ultimately does this decision mean for other witnesses that are trying to claim executive privilege?
I think ultimately it's a green light for the committee. They've indicated now, relying heavily on that Court of Appeals opinion, which was very well done, relying on that opinion in the sense that that opinion said even if Trump had been or now was the incumbent, they still didn't think there could be a valid assertion of executive privilege under these circumstances. So with that, I don't think other witnesses are going to have much of a leg to stand on in light of that. The court didn't completely foreclose the possibility, but for now, I think that's a green light.
And how about Ivanka Trump? The committee asked her to voluntarily cooperate in the investigation. It's obviously not clear whether she intends to do so. You've argued that she might have a better case for executive privilege than someone like Steve Bannon. Why?
Oh, that's because she was actually working on the payroll at that time for the government, serving as an advisor to the president. So at least she fits that category, unlike Bannon, which was completely out in left field there. Again, given that most recent rebuke by the Supreme Court, the rejection of Trump's arguments, I ultimately don't think that would prevail. I think there's an outside chance, going out on a limb here, that she might choose to actually accept that invitation. She might have enough confidence in herself as a communicator that she thinks maybe she can do her dad and her own cause some good. That would be a mistake, in my opinion, as a defense attorney. That's a kind of hubris that often gets witnesses into trouble.
We'll talk a potential bet on whether Ivanka cooperates or not off camera. Shan, let's talk Rudy Giuliani, because CNN reported this week that the former mayor of New York led a group of Trump campaign officials in efforts to put forward fake electors in 7 states that Trump lost. We know the committee is obviously very interested in the plot to overturn the 2020 election. They've subpoenaed Giuliani. He's obviously resisting cooperation. What does that new detail about the fake electors mean for the investigation more broadly?
I think that is a extremely significant detail. It's really outrageous they were engaged in that. I think from a criminal exposure standpoint, I think Giuliani's really got a lot to be worried about at this point. Apparently some of the states, they had some sort of caveat language in there that these fake documents were only to be used in case there was an actual overturning of the state's results. In others, there wasn't. In any state where there was not some kind of caveat that way, that's a real problem. I mean, that's going to run afoul of state laws in terms of election interference, forgery of documents, as well as federal laws. And really, the Justice Department needs to move on that. I mean, that's really a blatant type of attempted fraud.
Shan, lastly, the committee is still pouring through the 700-plus pages of documents. The tranche contains things like handwritten memos by the chief of staff, call logs, visitor records, even pages from the press secretary's briefing book. Help us understand the significance of obtaining these documents and whether they could be a turning point in this probe.
Oh, yes. That's a treasure trove of documents. It's giving insight for the committee into the real-time thoughts of people. They memorialized issues. There's scheduling notes. It really gives all of the evidence about what people were thinking at the time. And that thinking is what's so important, because that's what determines intent as to whether they were simply reacting to an emergency or whether it was part of a planned crisis. If the inner circle wanted to have this disruption, then they're all being drawn into that web of the seditious conspiracy.
It is a lot to walk through, and we appreciate you doing it with us this morning. Shan Wu, thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Of course.
Thank you, Shan.